Are you interested in becoming a marine biologist? Would you like to know the most important thing that I think you can do to get into this fascinating field of marine biology? If so, this video is for you. A lot of times people ask me, what can I do to get into the field of marine biology? You know, they're looking for experience, but I don't have experience, and it seems like my degree is not enough to get a job. What do I do? How can I get my foot in the door? So if any of these questions interest you, then this video is for you. Now, before I share what I believe is the #1 first step to getting into the field of marine biology, I want to introduce myself. I am Shannon, and I have a passion to help the next generation get into the field of marine biology. And I personally have been a marine biologist for 27 years. And what I'm about to share with you today was one of the most important actions that I took that really got my foot in the door for my first paid marine biology position. Now, I'm really excited to share this information with you. But first, let me ask you some questions. How can you get experience even if you aren't ready to get an actual job, even when you're really too young or too busy or whatever to actually commit to a regular job? Another question I have for you is, how can you start contributing to the field of marine biology right away without even having any prior experience or before you even graduate, either college or even high school or even middle school? Also, a third question for you. How can you meet people working in marine biology and get to know them and be able to demonstrate your dedication to the field and earn their respect and appreciation, and hopefully get a letter of recommendation from them one day when you're ready to get a real job? The answer to all these questions is volunteering. Now, not only have I seen the powerful effect of volunteering from my own 27 years in experience, but I've also asked other people, leaders in this field, and they all say the same thing, that volunteering is very important to get into the field of marine biology. Now, last spring we had a virtual event at the Marine Institute where I work. I interviewed 4 of the top leaders of our institute live in this virtual event, and one of the questions that I asked them was, what advice do you have for people just starting out their career in this field? Each and every single one of them mentioned that volunteering was the #1 most important thing you can do to get yourself into the field of marine biology. And so I suggest you start right away, or as soon as you possibly can, to get yourself on the path to becoming a marine biologist by getting out and doing some volunteering. So I know there's a lot of focus on education, especially when you're younger, and getting a good education is very important. But in this field, it's going to take more than a degree in marine biology to get into this field in most cases. And I'm sure there are exceptions, but in general, you're probably going to have to get some experience to get your foot in the door, as they say. So this video has some important information for you to consider before you start volunteering. There are many opportunities for volunteering in the field of marine biology. Too many to really cover them all here in this short video, but I'm going to cover several types that I have commonly seen based on my experience in the field. Now, volunteering takes many forms. It could be volunteering for a conservation group. It could be being an intern for a government organization. It could be helping a graduate student with their research, or becoming a citizen scientist. Now, if that's a new term for you, citizen scientist, I'm going to explain that at the end of this video. If you are really interested in marine conservation, then you might want to work with an aquarium or a conservation group. There are thousands of different conservation groups and aquariums throughout the United States, and many, many more throughout the world. You will just need to find one near you. Now, some of you may be thinking, I don't live near the ocean right now. How can I volunteer in the field of marine biology? So I grew up nowhere near the ocean, so I can totally relate to you. But I have two main ideas for you if you live far from the ocean and you want to get into the field of marine conservation. So are there any aquariums located where you live? Because they usually do have opportunities for volunteering. If you are interested in either conservation or management parts of marine biology, you can look into wildlife or freshwater, like rivers or lakes, conservation or management organizations. So although these are not marine biology per se, the fields of marine biology, freshwater biology, and wildlife conservation are very closely related, and many of the same methods and procedures are followed. Most volunteer work that you will do in these other fields will be considered experience, although it's not officially in marine biology. So no matter if you live near or far from the ocean, you should really look into universities to see what types of research is going on there. This is really where I would go if you are going to eventually go into marine biology research. It's so easy right now. So many departments and professors have their own websites with their projects and graduate students listed on them. And speaking of graduate students, they are really a good place to start if you want to volunteer at a university. They are a lot less intimidating to talk to than some of the professors sometimes. Although some of the professors are really down to earth and easy to talk to, a lot of times they're going to get you in touch with their graduate students anyway. Now, if you are not sure how the whole graduate school thing works, that's another video. But in general, graduate students that are going for a higher degree, either a master's degree or a doctorate in the field of science, will be working under a professor and doing a specific research project for their degree. Graduate students sometimes need help with their projects, so this is where you come in. Now, there's another note for people living away from the ocean. Sometimes professors will still be doing ocean research even though they do not live near the ocean. They may be getting grants to conduct marine research in different areas, and they bring back the samples to process them. So you never know until you look and see what is available for your area. I would definitely do some research on what universities or colleges are near you, and then look at the departments in the fields of ecology, biology, wildlife sciences, fishery sciences, or similar departments, depending on what interests you. Then you can look at the research going on in each department and reach out to the people in that department. And like I said, I would start with the graduate students because they are probably the most open to getting help from you. But they also want to make sure that you are dependable and conscientious about helping them with their projects, because they really care a lot about their work. And it does take them some time to train you on what to do. So please try to at least commit to helping them a few times. So let me explain one of the biggest things that I did to get my foot in the door to my first marine biology paid position. I agreed to help a PhD student with her research. Initially, I got an hour of research credit at my university, and I think I did that for 2 semesters. I can't remember exactly because it's been a long time, but after the final semester was over, I kept on coming in to help her out. She went out every single day, 7 days a week, and put these collectors out in the water, and they collected crab Megalope, which is like the really tiny stage of the crab before it becomes benthic and a crab that you're used to seeing. It goes through a whole bunch of different planktonic stages, and that was one of the stages. is Megalope, and so we collected those with these collector devices. I'm going to try to find a picture of it because it's really interesting. It is something that people had to invent. They invented these to get to sample the crab Megalope, and it's just a perfect example of how you have to be creative to be a marine biologist. There's so many things that people have had to invent just to, sample and learn more about marine species. So we would take out, in the morning, we would take out these collectors out into the field. They would stay out for 24 hours. And then at the end of that 24 hours, we would go out the next morning and collect them. And then we would go take them back to the lab and process the samples. And so that would leave us with a whole bunch of little crab Megalope for us to identify under the microscope. So there were two main species that we were looking at, or that were being collected from these collectors. One was called Calanectes savidus, which is the blue crab that people eat, and it's a very important commercial fishery here in the United States. And there was another species called Calanectes similis, which is the lesser blue crab, and there were a lot fewer of those. But we had to identify those two species, and they were very difficult. You did have to look very closely under the microscope at their antennae, and that's how you figure out which species it is. So anyway, it was really a lot of samples to do, but I really enjoyed helping her, and I would go in and identify the species as much as I could, and I just really enjoyed her. She always had a lot of interesting stories to tell, and it was just interesting work, and I enjoyed helping her and making sure that she didn't get too far behind with all the samples. And we're actually still are friends, and she works for National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and that's where she worked when I started helping her with her project too. She had a co-op position. Even though she was going to school to get her PhD, she was still working at NOAA, is what we call it. And so she still works there after 35 years, and she has agreed to an interview with me later on this year. So I will definitely be posting that here, and if you want to follow me, so you can definitely see that video. She's very interesting. She's helped many people get into the field of marine biology over her career. So anyway, back to my story. I helped her. We go in all the time, and it was a really neat experience. Also, I had a lot of reasons to go in. I was really busy. Like, I had going to school full time. It was a full-time job, but just to get me, to take care of the expenses and things like that. But I had this really tiny apartment, and it didn't have it had air conditioning. It had like a window unit, but it didn't hardly work at all, and so it was like sweltering in there. So I actually really enjoyed going to the lab too, because it was like nice and cool in there, and I could talk to people, interesting people, and work on these projects, and it was just really, really fulfilling in a few different ways. So I kept on coming in, and finally she talked to her supervisor about me and told him about how I was working and everything, and so he offered me a part-time paid marine biology job, and that was my first paid marine biology job. And then I kept on trying to kept on proving myself and being consistent and working hard, and then that turned into a full-time position. So that's my story, and I think it's really kind of similar to a lot of people's stories that I've heard through the years, that they did do some volunteering. Usually that is the first step in getting into this field. So another idea for you for volunteering is you can actually volunteer while you're traveling. So if you are traveling to any place for any length of time, there may be opportunities for you to help out for the day. So in Florida, we have a lot of these, and You can take a day or longer if you want, or you can sign up for just a morning to look for turtle nests on the beach. You can do beach cleanups, water cleanups that are on, kayak based, and there's a lot of other opportunities that you can look into in the areas where you are traveling if you are traveling near the ocean, like so many people do. So we also have this fairly new idea called citizen scientists. Have you heard of this, citizen scientists? A citizen scientist is a member of the general public who collects and analyzes data related to the natural world, typically as a part of a collaborative project with professional scientists. So I'm going to explore the possibilities of becoming a citizen scientist in another video because it's a new concept and there's really a lot to it, but it's really taking off by storm. And I'll just give you one example. There are apps that you can now download for your phone, and when you see different species, you can take a video, take a photo, and submit those through this app to different agencies. And the data it goes through like a critical review, and so the data is not as reliable as having like a trained scientist observing the species, but when you have a video and a photo, that helps with the reliability, and it's a very important contribution to our field. So if you want to become a marine biologist, you probably have a personality where you enjoy contributing beyond yourself. I have a course where you go through and you figure out what your top personality needs are, and then we relate those to different marine biology jobs that might be a really good fit for you. And then in the course, the next step, we develop a plan for you to get on track so that you can achieve your goal of your dream career. One step in that process is to, most of the time, do some volunteering. So, if contribution is one of the more fulfilling things for you and you're interested in becoming a marine biologist, I highly recommend that you try volunteering. I guarantee it is going to be very fulfilling to you. Now, I hope that I've convinced you to get out and try some volunteering. It really is the best way to get valuable experience, start contributing to the field of marine biology or conservation, and get to know people working in the field who could eventually be references on your resume if you stick with it. These are just a few of the many benefits of volunteering. In my next video, I'm going to talk about a few more benefits of volunteering and then go over what you might expect from the experience. I'll see you then, and thanks for watching.